Chapter 6. London's Cold. Welcome and deportation to Rwanda. Standing on the wet streets of London, the cold rain washing over me, I felt a chill that penetrated deep into my bones. It was not just the harsh English weather, but the icy stares and the frosty reception from the people who were supposed to protect me. My dreams of finding sanctuary in this land of opportunity were shattered as I faced the stark reality of being an unwanted outsider. The walls of bureaucracy and apathy closed in on me, and the threat of deportation to Rwanda hung over me like a dark cloud. This is the story of my struggle in London, a city that offered no warmth or comfort, and my fight against the system that sought to send me back to the very place I had fled. Join me as I navigate through the labyrinth of immigration laws, face the hostile environment, and confront the harsh reality of being a refugee in a foreign land. This is the final chapter of my journey, a testament to my determination to survive and my hope for a brighter future. London, a city of dreams, had always seemed like a beacon of hope in the stories I'd heard. But the city I found myself in was vastly different from those tales. Its historic grandeur was eclipsed by the chilling indifference I met at every corner. It was the summer of 2023, a year that marked the culmination of my harrowing journey. Here I was, amidst the thrumming heart of England, living in the cold shadows cast by its towering structures. I was lodged in a cramped hostel for asylum seekers, on the fringes of the city. The dingy rooms and peeling wallpaper were a stark contrast to the picture-perfect London from postcards. The strict curfews and endless rules made it feel less like a refuge and more like a prison. Here, I was just another statistic, a faceless asylum seeker amidst countless others, living in constant fear of deportation. The asylum process was a complex labyrinth of paperwork, interviews, and ceaseless waiting. I found myself embroiled in a system that was far from empathetic. A sense of despair seeped into my days, as the longing for Kamau was coupled with the harsh reality of my present. Around me, I saw the apathy of the system, how it ground down the spirits of those like me, who had risked everything in search of a better life. The hard-set faces of the officials and their toneless voices reminded me that I was just a number to them, another case to be processed. Despite the bustling city life outside, I was trapped in a limbo, caught between the horrors of my past and the uncertainties of my future. I was free from the clutches of smugglers and the merciless desert heat. Yet I found myself yearning for the warmth of the Kenyan sun, the soft rustle of our maize farm, and Kamau's laughter. The heart of London, with its dazzling lights and ceaseless energy, felt like a world apart. The indifference of the city was evident in the way it overlooked us, in the way it moved on, oblivious to our plight. As days blurred into weeks, my resolve hardened. I refused to let this city break me. I decided to fight for my right to live here, for my right to a safe and secure life. I joined English language classes, participated in asylum seeker support groups, and volunteered at a community centre. I missed Kamau with every fibre of my being, but his memory steeled my determination. He would not want me to give up, to let the apathy of others define my fate. He would want me to rise, to fight, to survive. Every night, as I stared at the London skyline from my small window, I whispered a silent prayer into the cold city air, for safety, for acceptance, for a future where I wouldn't have to hide in the shadows, for Kamau, wherever he was. One fateful day, our hostel was raided. The firm knock on the door, the stern faces of the immigration officers, the terrified faces of my fellow asylum seekers. It all happened so fast. I was rounded up like so many others and taken to a detention center. A new layer of fear added to an already uncertain future. Rwanda, one of the officers had said when I asked about my fate. My heart dropped at the word. I was being deported back to Africa, the continent I had risked everything to escape. Rwanda, a country unfamiliar to me, a place where I had no ties, no family. As I waited in the detention center, I couldn't help but think of my journey, of Kamau, my love, my anchor, our small farm in Kenya, our dreams, our hopes, our life together before it was disrupted by the unforgiving tides of climate change. How we had laughed and loved, worked under the African sun, the simple joy of our shared dreams, and how it had all been replaced with fear, uncertainty, and a fight for survival. Each part of our journey, each heart-wrenching decision, had been necessary for survival. If we had stayed in Kenya, in our drought-ravaged village, we would have starved. The land that had once nurtured us had turned against us, its once fertile soil reduced to dust. The city, the Sahara, the smugglers, the Mediterranean, the vigilantes, we had faced them all in our quest for survival. Now I was staring at the possibility of being thrown back into the same inhospitable Africa we had fled. I felt a sense of despair, of anger. This was my story, my struggle. But I was not alone. I was one of the millions, people who had been displaced by the effects of climate change, by the indifference of the world. As our lands become hotter, our crops failed. More and more people would face the same decisions, the same journey, the same fear. I clung to Kamau's photograph, his smiling face a sharp contrast to my grim reality. If he were here, I knew he would tell me to keep fighting, to keep hoping. His absence was a deep wound in my heart, one that never seemed to heal. This was my story, the story of Amina, a 24-year-old woman from Kenya, a climate refugee, an asylum seeker in a world that seemed to have forgotten about humanity. A woman who had crossed deserts and seas, who had faced smugglers and vigilantes, only to be facing deportation to Rwanda. As I sat in the cold confines of the detention center, the weight of my journey bore down on me. Every step I had taken from the parched soils of Kenya to the bustling streets of the UK had been driven by hope. Hope for a better life, hope for a world that recognized the dire realities of climate change. Our story was but one among countless others, a mosaic of tales of resilience and desperation, all spurred by the relentless tide of a warming planet. The world was shifting, and while I had been pushed by the cruel gusts of man-made climate breakdown, there were millions more, whispers of stories that echoed my own, waiting in the wings. Coastal communities in Bangladesh and the Pacific Islands are already losing their homes to rising seas. Farmers in the Sahel are watching their lands turn to dust, and people in the Arctic are witnessing their world literally melt away. As dusk crept over the detention center, the horizon painted with hues of fading hope, I clenched my fists with renewed resolve. This was not the end. The setting sun was a poignant reminder of the waning time we have left to address the root cause of our plight. I vowed, with every fiber of my being, to persist and to resist. For my husband, Kamau, for myself, and for every Amina and Kamau in increasing numbers that would inevitably tread this path in the future. If we don't confront and rectify the ravages of climate breakdown, it might not be long before it's not just people like me making such perilous journeys, but perhaps you, your children, or your children's children. Let this story serve as a clarion call, urging us all to unite in the fight against climate breakdown and to protect our planet for future generations.
This is Chapter 6, the final chapter of a 6-part short story. The easiest way to watch or listen to the other 5 parts of this story is to either subscribe to the Romance Diaries on YouTube or click on the link in the description below. If you subscribe to the Romance Diaries, you can also enjoy other stories of love, romance, heartache, cheating and betrayal, and by clicking on the notification bell at the same time, we can let you know every time we bring out a new video. And if you would like to experience your own real-life romance, why not click on one of our sponsors, which you will also find in the description.